let me talk to him that we need him around, and if there's anything we could do to ensure that he's part of us, let me know.
All right, sir.
Okay, Ahmed. Ahmed.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aziz Amid Olalekon, membership number 0555553. Currently, I work with First Bank Nigerian Limited. I'm glad to be a part of this district. Thank you.
Which of the branches, sir?
Matori branch, sir.
Where is Matori?
In Mushin, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I hope you will help us talk to other colleagues of ours there. Now, this is a district to be, right?
Currently, I'm the only chartered accountant there.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Onome.
Good afternoon. My name is Onome Agala. Good afternoon, all. My name is Onome Agala. My membership number is 037126. I work with Anna Business Jets Limited. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Wale.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wale Alabi. My membership number is 054-180. Currently, I work with the Central Securities Clearing System, the only clearing house for the Nigerian capital market. So I'm happy to be here, and I want to learn from senior colleagues. Thank you.
So you have to pay a sum of 10,000 naira immediately to the boss of this district for advertising your company without confiding in me first. No story. I want to see your confirmation that you have paid that money. If you don't pay, I will lead my executive to your office and you will entertain all of us. That's just it.
No problem, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oluwakemi.
My name is Oluwakemi Mayode. I'm a senior auditor at Sulaiman & Co. I came into Lagos years of recent. I've been in Bonny for some while with Bonny, Ayekan, and district. So I'm happy to be part of this district. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Auditor. Sulaiman & Co. or Sulaiman something & Co.
Sulaiman & Co. Lagos at the local gym.
Okay, thank you so much. Is Sulaiman part of us here now?
Is that?
Is Sulaiman part of us here in the local gym?
I'm not sure.
Okay, please, you are our ambassador there. See what you can do to get us some of your members there so that we can see what we can do, because that kind of firm will qualify for our visitation as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah. Afolabi.
My name is
Please go ahead. Sorry about that. Afolabi, go ahead.
My name is Odusonya Afolabi Uluwarotimi.
We are with you.
My name is Odusonya. Good afternoon, sir, and members of the IGDS. My name is Odusonya Uluwarotimi Afolabi, MB 056019. I work with Proto House Company Limited, and I'm happy to be part of IGDS, and I hope I will enjoy my time and learn more from my senior colleagues. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. The last but not the least, Oye Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't change my name on my Zoom. My name is Dear Kolola Adeoba, MB 055302. I currently work as Operational Risk and Sustainability Officer with Greenwich Merchant Bank. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Dear Kola. Thank you for being part of this, and we hope that all of you that are here today for the first time will be kind to be ambassador and help us with other members out there to benefit part of what you are benefiting. I'd like to call on Mr. Segun Ishola. This is 3 minutes to the time we are to start our technical session. Mr. Segun Ishola, please unmute yourself and make welcome all these 14 new members of our district. Tell them what they need to hear within the spirit of 1 minute, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I want to welcome the new members to our midst. This is Ilukweju Bagada and District Society. We pride ourselves as the model district of ICANN, and we welcome you to the family. We strive to develop ourselves when it comes to the technical, which is our flagship. We are proud to say that we are non-equal among all the districts, and I'm sure that we will not regret every iota of time that you spend with us. Just as we have been saying before, we want to welcome you to the flight, cruise with us, participate fully, be relevant, join committees. Let's do it together. And at the end of the day, we want to assure that whatever you are getting as returns, because your accountant, will be more than what you are actually investing in the district. So you are welcome once again, and wish you a good time with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That was Mr. Segun Ishola, the conference chairman. Thank you for that. This is exactly 404. The chairman of technical committee should take over from here, and I want to sit back to also enjoy all this period could offer for some of us. I can confirm to you that I've started having my pen rolling and my jotter ready. Let's see how far we can go with this. Madam Titi Fawokon, please introduce your guest, who is going to be our member from tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Here, ma.
Thank you very much, my chairman. Distinguished members of the district, we have an erudite scholar in the house today. He's no other person than Alhaji Aziz Alatoye. He's a managing partner of Ascension Consulting Services. By virtue of my knowledge of him, I know he's a fellow of so many institutes. He's an accountant, he's a tax practitioner, he's a lawyer, he's a management consultant. In fact, he's an arbitrator, and he has this from both Nigeria and the UK. He's worked in 3 of the big 4. He worked in PwC, Akitola Williams, Deloitte, and Ernst & Young before he moved to Ascension Consulting Services. He has extensive knowledge, skills, and experience in fiscal matters, petroleum industry tax matters. I think Aziz is the first person I knew who never did anything in taxation but petroleum, oil and gas, oil and gas, and oil and gas. He has knowledge in international tax, business tax compliance. He did a bit of HR, and he has good interpersonal relationship that he's able to use to keep his staff. He's a member of the tax faculty of ICANN, and also a member of the technical committee to the National Assembly on PIB 2018, which has seen the light of the day now. He's a key member of the fiscal team of the Federation. Distinguished members, you have no other person than Alhaji Aziz Alatoye. In fact, you can see that he joined us early because he has taken this as a very paramount invitation. So I know Alhaji Aziz will do justice to the topic today. We are discussing today on the Petroleum Industry Act 2021 post-implementation review. And we have no better person than Alhaji Alatoye to discuss this because of the depth of his experience and knowledge in the oil and gas industry. Alhaji Alatoye, I want to believe that you can share your screen from wherever you are. Are you online, sir?
Yes, thanks very much, Doctor. I'm online. I've been trying to share, but it's saying host disabled participants, screen sharing.
let's see, we should be able to share. Prof,
That's
can we
right.
give Alhaji Alatoye access to share his screen, please?
You should try now. You should try.
Okay. All right. All right. I will do that now. All right. Zoom, allow Zoom to share. Yep. Yeah.
So I want to believe that we can have you for about 40 to 45 minutes. I know it's loaded, but so we can give our members time to ask questions.
No, that is fine. I'm trying to.
Have you been able to share, sir?
Not yet. It's coming up with some instructions rather than going to my desktop.
Okay. Let me see if it's something I can. Okay. Let me just see if I can. I can't log on from here. I think it's full. So
Allow Zoom to share your screen. And I said open preference.
Can I, Prof, can I send it to you so you can just share from your end?
Oh, yeah, try it and send it to Mr. Abe, because I'm using phone. Once I transfer my Zoom to the laptop, I may not come back again, and I don't want to miss Alatoye's
That's
paper.
what I'm also trying to.
Okay. I think there is a
You can
limitation
continue
to
with your
the
paper.
sharing.
We'll sort it out. We'll send it to me. I will send it to all the platforms.
Okay,
Let our members follow up.
I have actually sent it to Dr. TF.
Okay, Dr. Titi, send it to all platforms.
Yes, I have it.
Yeah, it's
so send it to me. Send it to me.
me.
Let me share it.
Okay, good.
Okay, your email address again, please.
No, through WhatsApp now.
I need to. I'm also being careful.
Okay, well, send it to me. Send it to me, ma. I will upload it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Barrister Alatoye can continue, sir.
Okay. Okay, it's all right. Let me just continue until we're able to see. I'm seeing from my side here. Yes, good evening, everyone.
You can put on your video so we can see your face. Some may not know you.
Okay. All right.
If possible, please.
No, very much. Would you like to access the camera? I said yes, okay. Yeah, are you seeing it at the other side?
We can see you now. We can see you now. We're trying to upload your paper.
Yeah, I've been trying to also share the screen here. Ordinarily, I'm supposed to be able to share it, but I think there are some controls from the other end.
Okay.
We will see to that.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
sort that out. You can continue, sir.
All right, it's okay. So good evening, everyone. It's nice joining you this evening to discuss the Petroleum Industry, Act 2021, and specifically the post-implementation issues that we will need to review. Let me know when I need to stop, Doctor. This is, I think, 4:11. So
5:11 is okay.
So 5:11. All right, so that I can be very conscious of that, because Petroleum Industry Act could be
the
sometime.
WhatsApp group. You can pick it from ESCO WhatsApp group now and project. Okay, go ahead, sir.
All right, so the discussion content is going to be a very high level highlight information about the Petroleum Industry Act. And we will look at the key objectives, that were set between year 2000 and 2021. What are the key objectives? And we will be able to measure those objectives against the current, performance between last year when the act was signed and now. So we will look at the sectors of the petroleum industry, as well as some key definitions. And we will look at the post-implementation issues that are coming up, starting with the news, of today, since it was passed. There are some key issues as chartered accountants surrounding, filing of tax returns that we need to be aware of, penalties for late filing, and then the new tax rates, as well as general questions and answer as we move on. Right. So I'm right now on the Petroleum Industry Act in retrospect. So let us check some few things as against, what we plan actually to have. And I will be starting with discussing the headline news that we have, in the last couple of months, at least between January and now, but just only one for 2021, as far as the industry information is concerned. Now, the first one is good news that the crude oil price reached 100 USD. Okay, are you able to?
Yeah, it's being projected now.
Okay, yeah,
you
okay. You need to go to next slide. So I will be saying next until you get to the slide I'm presenting. Please move on to the next slide. Okay, is it a prof that is moving it, or who is moving it?
Assistant prof. Not me, sir.
Okay.
Sir. Mr. Abe.
Okay, no, you need to go back. Yeah, you need to go back.
Will we also make you a co-host so that you can do this on your own? So sorry.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm able to do it, it's going to be easier and then faster. Yeah, these were the objectives I went through. So this is the next one, which is the discussion objective. Sorry, can you go to the next slide? I've already gone through this. Yes, this is the one I was talking about in retrospect, exactly. So
Alaji, you are not a co-host. Alaji, you are not a co-host.
Okay, now let me just try again.
Share.
Yeah.
You're on share so that I can share. Okay, so you try to share now.
Yes, I'm trying to share now. Okay, let me start all over. So have you on share?
Yes.
No, it's saying only one person can. Let me just try.
Do it now.
Yeah. It's still not coming up. I think it's my picture that is coming up.
Okay, we spotlighted you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can you probably remove that so that maybe
I've done so.
Okay.
I've done so.
Now let me try again to share whether that is going to come up. Go to one participant can share host only. All participants. Okay. Share. It's still not coming up with the sharing.
Okay, so let's go with Mr. Abe's screen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, can you then project?
Mr. Abe, please help us so that you just have to move at his pace. So that
Yeah. Because of the time, I need to move a bit fast.
yeah, it's on now, sir.
Okay. All right. Yes. Thanks very much, Mr. Abid. Yeah. Now, so there are some news that we have as of today that will enable us to think back to about a year ago, because we're talking about an act that was signed into law on the 16th of August, 2021. So it's just some few days to 1 year to this bill. What are the news that we're having in the media generally? And the first good news is that the crude oil price is now within the range of $100 US. At least in June, it actually crossed $100 US, but now I think around 98 US. Now, having said that, the greatest challenge that Nigeria has of today, which is even threatening both the act and the ability to continue, enjoying the crude oil, is the crude oil theft in Nigeria, which the CEO of Chevron Nigeria has described as organized crime. Another headline news is that Nigeria lost 108,000 barrels daily in first quarter of 2022. Nigeria lost $1 billion US in quarter one revenue due to crude oil theft. Oil theft, Nigeria lost 3 trillion naira in 2021. I tried to put the calculation out there and on how they arrive at that 3 trillion. Now, the upsurge of oil theft and illegal oil bunker in Nigeria, is there a way out? This is the question now that everybody is asking in the industry. And continuous oil theft may force, us to quit Nigeria. Shell said that on the 2nd of July 2022. And today, if you look at the headline in The Nation, Shell actually, threatened again that probably they may be shutting down in Nigeria due to oil theft. And the last of the news is that Nigerian courts blocked Shell's accounts over alleged, oil theft of about 16 million, barrels on 17th of February, 2021. And lastly, we have it that the federal government, withdrew.
Sandra, I will remove you. Sandra, continue, sir.
Okay.
I've already removed them, so there's no need for us telling them we want to remove.
Okay, all right, thanks. So the last news is what every one of us, was watching both on television and reading in papers, that federal government withdrew $1 billion US from the excess crude accounts, and then leaving a balance of 376,000 in that account. So these are post-PIA news. Now let's go ahead, to the next slide.
Ogabi, next slide.
Yeah, Mr. Abe, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, actually, the next slide provides the statistics, for discussion. And what we have there is just to see the importance of a PIA with respect to where we are going. Now, if we look at it in year 2000, when the PIA discussion, started, what we had as a country then was about 40 billion barrels of crude oil. That was year 2000, which was 21 years, when I think every person should be muted. The interruption is just quite much.
Alaji, please just hold on. Distinguished members, okay. This is not fair on us. And I want to believe that those that are disturbing us are not really our members, because they know that we don't have temperament for this. Once you just unmute yourself, whether you talk or not, we will remove you. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks. So the first information that we all need to know about the statistics is that in the year 2000, we have about 40 billion barrels of crude oil in Nigeria. And as of that year, we are looking at about 105 or 110 years for us to have the benefit of crude oil if we are winning crude at 2.5 million barrels per day. But as of this year, what we have is 36.8, roughly 37 billion barrels of crude. So which means over the past 21 years or thereabouts, we've been able to win just only 3 billion barrels. And we still have, about 27 billion barrels, underneath out there. Now, we have just only about 8 more years, because by year 2030, by year 2030, everybody will be moving from fossil fuel to, clean energy. So we are talking about, transitional energy at that time. And by year 2070, probably some are saying 2050, some are saying 2070, probably we will not be talking about fossil fuel again. The world will have migrated to clean energy. So, but what that means is that Nigeria needs to focus on how to monetize the crude oil. Otherwise, the crude oil is just going to be there as we have other, mineral resources that today we are not talking about them. So today we have about 3.1 billion, barrels that is won, over 22 years that we've been on that. Our target actually was about 4 million barrels per day. 4 million barrels per day. As at 2015, 2005, that was the projection of the federal government. And if you look at the 2022 budget, the price was, the planned production delay was about 1.88 million barrels per day, as against the 2.5 million barrels per day. So our dream was actually to move from the 2.5 million barrels per day to 4 million barrels per day. Invariably, because of the challenges we are having in Nigeria, oil theft, investors not coming in, instead of 2.5 million barrels, government budgeted 1.88 million barrels per day. However, if you look, and that was supposed to generate about 80 to 90% of the foreign earnings in terms of hard currency generation for Nigeria. Because of the continuous reduction in our daily production, OPEC has to cut, our quota from 2.5 to 1.8, and then again to 1.6, so that they don't cause, a huge gap at the crude oil market. But invariably, what we have as of the May report by OPEC is that Nigeria is producing 1.1 million barrels, per day. And unfortunately, you will see it in the news that the oil theft within the industry is now going to about 80%, of the production, which is forcing the oil giants, including Shell, to make pronouncements over time. They've been saying it right from January that oil theft may actually make them to be able to probably go out of the country if the oil theft continues. And in today's newspaper, The Nation, we will see there where Shell actually said they might have to exit Nigeria if nothing is done about the oil theft. Now, if we go to the gas aspect, the same thing in year 2000, as far as gas is concerned, we have 203 trillion standard cubic feet. And ordinarily, we are supposed to be producing 8 billion, standard, cubic feet, and we are supposed to be exporting for NLNG and then also have our own local production. But invariably, NLNG is producing about 3.5 billion, cubic feet. But the rest, we are not also able to meet with that gap. So these are areas that the PIA has come actually to address. Now let's move to the next slide and check the revenue, which is the oil revenue versus the non-oil revenue. Now, if we look at 2007, when the PIA, was in draft before it now become an act, the oil revenue in that year, was 1.13 trillion. And the non-oil revenue is about, 710 billion. So we have about 1.84. Now, the oil revenue was 61% of our total revenue then. And the non-oil revenue was 39%. 10 years later, in 2017, if you look at the percentage of the oil revenue, it has dropped from 61% to 38%. And the non-oil revenue has moved from 39% to 62%, making 100%. As of 2021, which was last year, the oil revenue has dropped again from 38 to 31%. And the non-oil revenue has gone up again from 62% to 69%. So the idea of PIA is, how are we going to increase this 31%, back to the 61% and beyond in a very short space of time, which is within 8 years, reaching 2030. So that is the major task that the PIA has actually come, to do. So now, in summary, we need to look at the challenges, that we have in Nigeria. The key challenges that we need to, face head on. So that goes to the next slide. And the first one, which I have emphasized significantly, is the oil theft. So even if we get the PIA rights and everything is working, the oil theft is definitely going to block the revenue. So oil theft seems to be number one, on the front burner right now. The second one is the divestment of the multinationals in Nigeria and our rating challenges. Now, rating challenges, I mean, looking at the whole environment that is looking to be, unfriendly. We are talking about the ease of doing business in Nigeria, but we can see the security challenge, for people in this industry. It's quite expensive, to maintain security apparatus, around oil and gas assets, and even around the manpower that is going to work on those assets. So because traveling from Lagos to any of the rig in the Niger Delta area, you need to have some sort of mopo, to be with you. These are not the things that the MNEs are looking, at. The third issue is conclusion of the marginal field, bid round, which is very, very key, and very important for us to conclude so that people can, go in there with the drilling activities. Another one is the high local, gas demand and, more exports. We've looked at the gas that we are supposed to be producing daily and what we are having. And the NLNG we are having by way of contractual arrangements, that has to be exported. So, and we still have gap that we need to produce, for the local market. And that is where even the marginal fields, come in. Activating Nigerian Gas Master Plan and then expansion program is very important for us to fill in that gap. And making refineries working is very important. I don't want to emphasize and re-emphasize this because I believe all chartered accountants must have an idea as far as refinery is concerned. And the government has 4 refineries. And today we can see we are still importing fuel, and no one can really understand why that should be. So the hope Nigeria has now is only on Dangote refinery. So if by the time that comes on board, probably we would then be able to be looking inwards, as a country. So it's a major challenge that we need to address. Again, planning energy transition from fossil fuel. I did mention this. Here, let me give one, parable that our chairman of the PIB in 2018, Mr. Austin Olorunshola, who was a former DPR director, he used to repeat one phrase to all the government agencies anytime we go to them. And they are trying to be a bit difficult, in this industry. And then he will say, look, in those days, what we used to have is the Stone Age. We did not leave the Stone Age because there was no stone. There was still stone from the Stone Age till today. But this is not the Stone Age. Next is the Iron Age. We did not leave the Iron Age because there was no iron. Iron will continue to be there, but the value that is going to be given to iron is going to be different when we move out of the Iron Age. We move to the Coal Age. We move to the crude oil age. And finally, we are definitely going to move from the fossil, fuel age. The key thing is for us to be able to maximize, the benefits of the crude oil. Otherwise, if the transition catches up with us and we leave the billion of barrels of crude underground there, it will be so unfortunate. And that is what it's all about when we say monetization of the oil and gas resources. So we have them in abundance, and invariably, we are not able to benefit from them, as of now. All right, so let's move to the next slide, and I will just take us very quickly through the transition, period down to when the act was passed. This journey started in the year 2000, when the government constituted some team of people, and I will say the OG team, invariably in 2005. There have been a lot of discussion before that. I'll just cut it short. The Oil and Gas Implementation Committee team, 2005, and in 2007, the idea about PIA, putting the document together, started, and that draft, commenced actually in 2008, and 2009, the first one was out. It couldn't be passed. Then we have another one in 2012 during the then President Goodluck Jonathan. That one could not also pass. Again, we have another one in 2018 because of some significant challenges. That one also could not be passed. And invariably, it was the 2021 PIB, which was passed into law and then became, an act. It is good for us as accountants to be reminded, of this history of 2 decades. And it was on the 16th of August, 2021 that it was signed, into law. Now, the importance and the benefit of that is that for the first time, the investors, they have clarity about the direction we're having in the, oil and gas industry in Nigeria. Whether favorable or not favorable. We are not talking about whether favorable or not favorable now. What we are talking about is that now everybody is clear as to the direction that the government is going. So the onus is on them now to actually put their economic models together and see whether they will invest or they will not invest. And so that is the idea. So now we're happy that at least we have the PIA. Now, let me also say that this PIA, we need to look at it from 3 perspectives. And the first one is, yes, now there is certainty in the industry because we know what the law is talking about. Before we used to have 85%, now we're having 30% for hydrocarbon tax, then we're having 30% for CIT, we pull them together, we get 60%. So that is very clear, and that is fine. However, let me say that PIA alone is not sufficient to actually improve investment in the oil and gas industry if the environment is unfriendly, including the oil theft. Now, the projection after this certainty are 3. Number 1 is that the PIA now is going to help to increase the production. The second one is that the production level or the performance of the industry is going to remain constant. And the third one is that the production level and performance level, the revenue level is going to be reduced, will be dwindled. So those are the 3 projections that the PIA may actually bring on board. Now, let's look at the different parts of PIA. PIA is divided into 5. It's divided into 5. And it is these 5 different aspects of PIA that is going to help us in either increasing the revenue, making the revenue to remain static, or reducing the revenue by way of corresponding operations and productions. Now, the first aspect of the PIA, which is very critical, is the governance and institution. When we talk about governance and institution, we are talking about 3 major things. Number 1 is the policy, which the government has to make. Now, number 2 is the regulatory, which is the award and management of the acreage. And then number 3 is the commercials, which are the entities like limited liability entities that will run the business. Now, what we used to have before is that we have both the policy, the regulatory, and the commercials under only one person, which is the minister. And so the MPR or the minister's office, have everything there. So it's a major challenge because, there is JV with the IOCs, and then you're having the issue of cash call not coming, a lot of challenges. Okay, and you also have an NPC, trying to act as a commercial arm of the government. So that needs to be looked into, and that was the basis of having governance and institution as a bill on its own, because it's a very huge challenge in the 2018, that couldn't really fly because of the suggestion there. The suggestion there was to actually split that office into 3. And we have the minister being in charge of policy, have the regulatory to be in charge of the acreages, and then you have those commercials to be purely limited liability companies, just like the Nigerian NLNG, having private sectors with them so that they can be bringing in dividend, taxes and royalties and those things to the government without the government spending a dime. So that was a recommendation in 2018, but invariably there was amendment to it in the 2021, which is what we now have. Now, the second one is the administration of the acreage. Now we need to look into the reduction, probably in the number of years and the way it's structured. Whether that is going to be fine with the investors, or not, we cannot actually say for now. We can only look at the performance at the end of this 1 year in some, few days to come. Let's say take stock of 1 year performance and subsequent years and see how PIA has actually, assisted the government in bringing in people into the industry. The third that is very important is the host communities development. So there are a lot of challenges with the host community because of the neglect for which the government has actually neglected them, despite the huge, oil revenue that is coming from their side. The schemes that were put in place were not working. The 13% derivation wasn't working. The NDDC wasn't working. These were monies that were shared, from Abuja, and they ended up at the state level. So we did recognize that, look, much needs to be done as far as the community is concerned. And so PIA addressed that by 3%. But now where we are is that, to what extent is that 3% working? We know that 3%, 75% of it is supposed to be in capital development, 20% reserve, for the host communities' future, and 5% administrative cost. Now, this is 1 year that we need to evaluate where we are in respect of the host community's life. Do we now have all the children in schools? Do we have schools all around there? Do we have power, in the whole community? Is the road now better than what it was before as a result of the host community, fund, and not the other funds that were there before? That is the essence of this evaluation, this afternoon. The fourth chapter has to do with the fiscal framework. And this fiscal framework significantly, let me put it in 2 ways. Number one, to increase the government revenue, and as well as increase the investment in the industry. So we need to weigh these two. Is the government revenue increasing as a result of volume coming from investment? This is question number one, as far as the government is concerned. Number two is, are we having more investments in this industry? The reason why I, pick some information from the news paper to which we'll have access is for us to know the psyche or the thinking of the IOCs. Because when we are talking about investment in the industry, we are talking about MNEs bringing in funds into Nigeria, which is FDIs, the foreign direct investment. So we haven't been seeing that invariably, so that, you know, we haven't been seeing that so that the industry can actually move up from after the passage of a PIA. And the last one is the miscellaneous provisions, which is basically what we were looking at on in terms of the legal aspect of it, and then the transitional, you know, method. And that's why you have some people converting, some people are not yet, you know, converting. So those are the 5 chapters that we are evaluating. So I'll just go through those key objectives and see whether where we are in respect of each of them. So the first one is to create an efficient and effective environment, more conducive, you know, for growth of the oil and gas industry. Now the question is, have we been able to achieve that? Well, it's subjective. Some might say yes, some might say no. But let me tell us, all these 4 points, we can pull them together and look at the production at the end of the day, if that is going to be our measurement that is achievable. Some people may say, no, if you use production, really, that may not be fair. Some things might be good, some things might really not be. But I think that's the only way we can agree on a common, you know, factor of measurement. So these efficient and effective environment for the growth of oil and gas need to be looked at if our production is dropping from 1.6 million to now 1.1 million. So where we are, it was 1.2, 1.3 million a couple of months ago. So that needs to be evaluated vis-a-vis our objective of going to 4 million barrels, you know, per day. Number 2, promote E&P resources, that's exploration and production resources, to the benefits of Nigerians. Now, is the oil money now more beneficial to Nigerians? This is arguable because $1 billion was just withdrawn last month, leaving us with 350 whatever thousand, you know, US dollars in our excess crude account. So if the 1 billion is able to erase the security challenges we're having, we will say, yes, it has benefited all Nigerians. Or invariably, if it doesn't, then we will come back to the drawing board and then everybody can form their own opinion. Foster sustainable prosperity within the host community. I did mention that before. To what extent is this 3% making changes in the host community? And finally, to encourage investment in the industry. Now, are we having FDI, you know, within the industry? Probably not, you know, for now, because we can read it that we are not having FDI flowing into Nigeria, and indeed it's actually dwindling. So let me talk through some PIA post-implementation details now. On governance and institution, the institution of the minister. Let me tell us, this is the greatest challenge of PIA, where, you know, everything is centralized. It is between centralization and decentralization, you know, and the analogy of some of us who are in the fiscal committee when it comes to the issue of governance and then institution is that, look, let's remove commercials totally from the office of the minister with utmost respect. And let it be like Nigerian LNG, that is a limited liability company with a board. Yes, the government can have 49% or 51% and then run so that this thing can be effectively and efficiently run as we have it in Nigeria and LNG. But what we have today is that is 100% owned, you know, limited liability NNPC, as we know, and then we know that definitely that's a government establishment and still have to, in one way or the other, report to the minister as to what is going on. So the same thing with regulatory. So if we pick an example of the telecom industry, where we have the office of the minister separate from the net, that's regulatory And then you have all the giants in terms of the commercials. So you have the 9Mobile, you have the Airtel, you have MTN, you have so they are purely in business. We are not even saying probably that it should be owned 100%, privatized, but then government can have a higher share there, but use private sectors to run it so that there can be more, revenue to the government. But as it stands today, we all know where we are. So again, we go to the institutions. We are looking at, before we have the DPR that regulates the industry. So now we have the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission. We also have the Nigerian Petroleum, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority that is now regulating the downstream. If you ask me, and then we now have the NNPC Limited. So if you ask me what has changed, before we have DPR, today we have NUPRC. Before the act, we have the PPPRA, but now we have the NMDPRA. So all the employees remains the same, the structure, everything remains the same. However, the name has changed. So whether that's going to bring up significant change to the industry, I think time will tell. And as I said, 1 year down the line, we need to start measuring it. One good thing is the creation of the midstream. And then we also have the midstream gas infrastructure fund that is being done, for that. So if we look at the objectives, I've listed that, but these are now the regulatory objective, perspective. So that's the next slide there. So if we look at the institutions that are introduced, we need to look at their objectives, their commercial functions, their technical functions, and then the power, of the commission. So because of time, I need to move, a bit faster. So again, as I said, I've talked about the role of the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission. One of the new assignment that was given to them, by the act is the frontier, acreage, so that we can have an expanded port now. If you look at the downstream, I also put the objective there is to regulate the midstream now and then the downstream. Before we didn't have the midstream, but now we do have, and it's for the development and enhancement of that industry. Now, let me also talk about the midstream and the downstream gas infrastructure. Now because the midstream is, now separated, so it's easier to have like the pipelines, to have the refineries, to have them regulated, as an industry, as against merging them with the downstream, for the products. So finally, we have the NNPC, Limited now, which is the Nigerian Oil Company. It is a limited liability company like Nigerian NLNG. And on 19th of this month, just I think the upper week, 19th of July 2022, the NNPC has now, NNPC corporation has now been NNPC Limited. It's not as if NNPC corporation is winded up. No, NNPC Limited was incorporated and all assets is going to be transferred to it. However, it is still going to be owned 100%, by the government. The question you want to ask as an auditor, as an accountant, as evaluator is that now, okay, so apart from the name, what has changed? Can I understand, please? But I will leave that to everyone, of us to really evaluate. Now, the issue of licenses is there. Now, before we used to have all those oil mining, oil this and that. So what we have now is petroleum, it's not oil. And that means we are now including gas in the name, and that is the essence, of that. I have the conditions for the renewal of the oil license, and then as well as the conditions for the conversion, of the license, just for our records, I try to summarize it so that instead of going through the whole body of the act, you can easily see those summary in there. Now, let me move to the fiscal, regime, and the key things that have happened that we need to note, as accountants. The first one is the exposure to the dual tax system. Some of us are against it, but now it has become law. Now, before we were having PPTA, that's petroleum profit tax. Now we're having Nigerian hydrocarbon tax and then CETA that's going to be paid by one company. Does that increase the government take? The answer is no, because you take 85%, you take 60%, it is coming from the same crude. However, what is the benefit of splitting it into two? Is just basically to account for the resource tax, and that's it. Again, also to do tax equalization where all companies will be under CETA, irrespective of their industry. Yes. Yes.
Please, we don't want you to rush this thing, so calm down. And because we are all here with you, so we still run to 5:30 with you, sir.
Oh, okay, all right, thanks.
So just don't rush it at all.
I want to make sure I finish the slides within that period. Okay, all right.
Please, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. So I'm on slide 24. If you can go to that, where you have. So I will take some time to explain some of these things to us, because this is the area where those of us who do computation, we need to be very much clear about what we are working on. So that's on slide 24. About the exposure to dual tax system. So we now have the Nigerian hydrocarbon tax, and we also have companies income tax that is going to be filed by each companies that are E&P, that exploration and production, companies. The second one is the companies in the midstream and downstream. What they need to do is just to file only the company's income tax. They don't need to file the Nigerian hydrocarbon tax. The Nigerian hydrocarbon tax is only for those who are having crude oil. So now, again, we have not been seeing the effect, in terms of challenges, except the current prices that the FIRS introduced into the monthly filing, right now, which is a challenge, to the industry. Now, the third one is the companies in the upstream, are liable to estimated hydrocarbon tax and estimated companies income tax with attendant huge penalties for non-compliance. Now, let me explain this to some of us who believe that CIT is only to be filed 6 months after the year end. No. In the oil industry now, it's been splitted into two. The Nigerian hydrocarbon tax, you have to file, on a monthly basis. As you are having price changes, you have to be revising them. If you don't, then you are going to incur penalties. As you are filing the Nigerian hydrocarbon tax, you must also file the company's income tax estimated. If you go to CETA, you won't find that there. So these are the additional amendments in PIA that those of us who are, working for E&P must take note of. Otherwise, the FIRS might penalize people if we are not complying. Now, responsibility to file the actual hydrocarbon tax and also CIT 5 months after the year end, and for CIT usually is 6 months. The fifth thing is introduction of the new NNPC. I've spoken about that. And co-mingling of different businesses is not allowed. For those of us, of course, one of the things is we should know our client very well. So if people are having two terrains, we shouldn't mingle their assets together. And we should prepare for those who are offshore separately and those who are those who are onshore, separately, and frontier exploration, we also need to prepare, for them separately. And you can prepare all those assets within that, range, but not to prepare frontier, with offshore. No, that's going to be wrong. Again, we need to look at the incentives, for gas business. All right, so let me also talk about some few things in the fiscal regime, those that are good and those that are also challenging. Now, we have what we have, we call cost price, ratio, cost price ratio now. Now, the implication of cost price ratio in hydrocarbon tax is that if we look at your revenue, let's say is $100 million US, for example, and your costs is, let's say, $50 million US, which is 50%, all your cost is going to be allowed. Up to 65% is going to be allowed. 35% of that cost, if any amount above 65% of the revenue, is not going to be allowed. For instance, if your revenue is $100 million US and your cost is $80 million US, ordinarily you will say you have a profit of $20 million US, which is supposed to be taxable. But the law now is that no, we are not going to allow you 80% of your revenue, but we are going to allow you only 65% of your revenue. So therefore, you have to deduct another 15 million cost and keep it until next year. And you will keep on, moving it forward indefinitely. That's what cost price ratio is all about. The challenge with cost price ratio in Nigerian environment is that we've been talking about a whole lot of cost of doing business, which make the cost to go up as a result of the government actions or inactions. For instance, the payment for security, whose problem is that? Again, then it's not going to be allowed more beyond 65%. Using generator to run all businesses 24/7, those are the challenges with the cost price ratio, but that's the way it works. Non-deductibility of corporate costs from the headquarters is another, challenges that the industry is facing, and the ring fencing of the hydrocarbon tax on terrain basis, which I explained earlier on. You don't treat onshore, offshore, frontier, shallow waters, and frontier. You don't match them together as one. So they have to be done separately. And then again, non-deductibility of the tertiary education fund. Under the PPT, tertiary education fund is deductible as an allowable expense. But now, under the Nigerian hydrocarbon tax, it is not allowable. And under CETA, ordinarily, you don't deduct tertiary education tax from the CIT cost. You don't treat it as a cost. It's a standalone tax on its own. Another issue is the reduction, in tax rates and the impact of it. As we have the tax rate now, being reduced from 85% to 60%, but because of the cost price ratio, we must be mindful that we need to run an economic model to see whether it is actually profitable, or not. From the model of the onshore is still challenging, but the one that is offshore is good for them because the people offshore, they are not paying hydrocarbon tax, even though they are in E&P. All they do is 30%, which is CETA, and that's good for them. Another thing we need to note is the carry forward of the investment tax credit and investment tax allowance, based on the PPTA. Okay. So that's also, the introduction of petroleum allowance as against, investment tax allowance and investment tax credit is a novice that we also need to measure, post PIA, how it has actually increased, revenue. Because the idea about production allowance is that, okay, allowance is going to be granted to you, computed based on the production you have done, and not really on account of the money you have spent, which is an effort. So we really want to see the product you have produced, and then use that to compute. So again, we need to see how that works and how that incentivizes the industry, people. So we move to now the host community, which I have discussed, earlier on. So the reason for the host community, it's very clear, is for sustainable development of the host community, especially with respect to the infrastructure of those host community. For some of us who have been at that host community, go there, in one rig or the other to go and see things physically, and you pass through the host community, I believe you will definitely have, a different view if you don't before. So, and that's why some of us agitate very seriously for, that host community to be managed at the host community level and not at the state level nor at the federal level, which is making the earlier schemes not working. But now we have the board that is going to manage, the fund at the host community level. We also have the management, committee at that level. We have the advisory committee at that level on the project that needs to be done, and the community people are included there in those boards. So I have the honest belief that this is, going to work now, except there is a general collusion, which might still make us to start thinking, of how these things should work. The other one is that, look, 3% has been earmarked, for the host community. Let's see how that 3% goes. I know there are some debate and argument about 5%, about 10%, but this is a starting point. And I have the honest belief that nothing is cast in stone. If it works well and there is still a gap that needs to be done, but I think that's going to give the government opportunity to have a second look at that. Then let's look at the allocation of the fund. And, on a tip of iceberg, now the next slide, we can see very clearly, that the capital development, in the host community is put at 75%, and that is great. Now 20%, is put as reserve, so which is going to be, invested in, future development of the host community, and 5% is for the administrative cost. Now, let me make a comment here. This 75% is still not up to, probably what can be used to eliminate the challenge out there. But if we look at this model and we look at the Norwegian, model, we will know that even though, yes, we still have a long way to go, I mean, it's a good starting point. In Norway, I think, as at the time when we were drafting the bill and we were there, so we have to meet with the energy minister and then the finance minister, and they told us that their oil revenue, that is the equivalent of our own ECA now, ECA, that's excess crude account. All their oil revenue, out of 100 USD, what they take to the annual budget of the federal government, of the government of Norway, is only 7%. 93% is what they invest in other countries. And some of us jokingly, we ask those ministers, so why did you do that? They say, yeah, we want them to be working for us and then keep, the profits on or interest on those our investments, for our future generation. So anytime I look at these interests, I mean, these percentages of 75% and 20%, yeah, okay, it's a good starting point to stabilize the communities and get the communities with 24/7 power, with good road, with schools and everything. But beyond that, we need to start looking into the future, of the children, of the people of that community as well. It's the same thing for Nigeria, but because this is specifically provided for in the Act, that's why I am saying that this is, a good start, and we must have focus on the future, meaning that more investment for the benefit of even the yet unborn, people within those host community. So finally, I will touch quickly on the filing of the returns. I've talked about estimated hydrocarbon tax, and then as well as the estimated company's income tax. And you can see Section 277 of the Act is the one that provides for that. Now, let me go to the penalties. I've included these penalties here so that we as professionals can go back and go and check very well to make sure that our clients are not, in default of filing of any returns. Because if they are in default, the penalty is stiffer now than before. Okay, let's look at the failure for filing of returns. It's now 10 million naira, for the first day, only one day. It's now 10 million naira. And every subsequent day is 2 million naira. If you ask me, what was it before? The one that is 10 million was 10,000 naira before. 10,000 naira. Now we are talking about 10 million. The one that is now 2 million naira before was 2,000 naira. Of course, 2,000 naira is, if you say I defaulted, I can check the naira in my pocket and count it and say, okay, take and let's move on. But 2 million naira per day is not a joke. And so that's why I try to emphasize it the other time. And I put this slide there so that we can, pay significant attention to that aspect. So making incorrect returns, have 15 million, or 5% of the amount that is undercharged, and failure to file returns, interest will also be accruing, at LIBOR rate plus 10%, of the estimated tax. I think we should move away from all those things. Now, finally, let's go to the tax rates. I've spoken about the tax rate. This is the template extracted from all aspects of the Act. So you have the onshore and shallow water, 15% hydrocarbon and 30% CIT, making 45%. So when you are hearing about, 45%, 60%, and then 30%, everything is here now. So for onshore and shallow water is 45%, and which is 15% hydrocarbon tax rate plus 30% CIT. Of course, CIT is constant from beginning to the end, which is 30%. It is the hydrocarbon tax that you have 15% for all the other ones, except only the onshore, which is 30%. So for onshore and shallow water is 15, 30, and down to the second to the last one. The last one, you have onshore and shallow water, 30%, and 30% hydrocarbon tax, and then 30% for companies income tax, making 60%. Other ones are 45%. And for deep offshore, those that are deep offshore is only 30%, and they don't have hydrocarbon tax, based on the Act. So finally, now the conclusion is that the Nigerian petroleum industry has now, before we're yearning for reform over decades, the PIA has now provided clear direction as to the immediate future of the oil and gas, industry in Nigeria. Number two is that the stakeholders are optimistic that the new law has the potential of putting, to an end decades of uncertainty concerning the future of the Nigerian oil and gas industry and attract, investors around the globe because of certainty. But I'm not saying here that PIA is going to attract. Now, the reason I'm not saying that is the expectation now is whether the PIA will increase the production, will make the production to be static, or may lead to declining in production. So these are the three scenarios I mentioned, at the beginning. As we have it today, I've already shown us those production, trend, what we were having before and what we are having today. So it is important to conclude that only PIA cannot lead to conducive environment as security and friendly legal and regulatory environments are other catalysts that are needed for us to be able to benefit from the PIA. When I say, security, I don't need to explain that. But when I say friendly legal and regulatory environment, you will see in the news that I extracted, there was one which says that the federal government of Nigeria, freeze, block Shell's accounts. Do you want to operate in an environment where government is not able to dialogue with you, but they went to the Federal High Court and they got an injunction to block the account of a multinational as huge as Shell? So that environment is going to send a wrong signal. So the fact that PIA, even you have a bit of, 60% is the rate now from 85%. That's not going to be sufficient. If we can just block your accounts, without any dialogue, and then after that is then you start going to court to lien on the account. With utmost respect, I know some people here will be saying, no, but what if they have done, what's right, what is incorrect, and not no. It doesn't work out that way. I think we can sit down and dialogue. Shell is definitely not going to run to anywhere. I mean, the whole world is now a global village. So, and everybody wants some level of comfort, So if we don't create a friendly, legal, and regulatory environment, then even if PIA reduces from 85 to even 30%, we're still going to be having challenges with the foreign direct investment because they don't know whether the whole of their investment can be blocked, and then they will not be able to, move. So the ease of doing business is something that the federal government needs to take, very serious for the PIA to work excellently well for us. So let me stop here, and the rest 10 minutes, if there are any question and answer, and then I can attempt them, before closing. Once again, I thank Prof. and thank the chairman of the committee for inviting me and for also extending the time. I was rushing actually to meet the deadline of the 5:11. I'm so grateful for extending it to 5:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, I think people, my colleagues, I just wanted to give a round of applause. I know we can give it electronically or whichever way we can do it. I think we just give that round of applause to our speaker for today. It's really been well loaded. It's a loaded session. I must admit what we said.
Thank you. Thank you all.
If we were to pay for this, we know how much we're going to pay, but we thank you for coming on board and not minding short notice to you. My professional colleagues, the floor is open for questions. If you have questions, we need to be very discreet with time. Let me see your hand up. Is the first to raise up their hand, they'll be called, and there'll be no calling after we close this. If you have questions. Okay, let me first call on Adebisi Adediwura. think I saw that hand first. Yeah, can go on.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, our facilitator. Thank you very much for the presentation. My question is straightforward. This issue of 80% of stolen production, is this really a verified figure? Because I'm wondering how 80% of our production is being stolen. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks very much. You see, the problem with that, you know, I don't really think we can go into the details other than what the MD of Chevron, you know, what he said, and what we also know that that's what is happening, but it's difficult really to track. If you look at bullet point number 2 on my slide 5, it says that crude oil theft in Nigeria is an organized crime. It involves the military, it involves the Navy, it involves the Air Force, and there is nothing you can do to them with utmost respect. It's very, for instance, Shell is not having asset onshore. What they are doing now is offshore, and yet they are losing, as of now, about 70% of their product. Some people will take pipe, you know, in there. This has to do with technology. It's not something they are doing overnight. And you also have aircraft that is hovering around there. This aircraft hovering there belong to the Air Force. The boats, the speed boats and whatever belong to the Navy. And then again, you are saying there is a theft offshore. If it is onshore, you can say they are militants or they are, you know, bandits. You don't know where they are inside the bush. But what of the one, where would anybody run to offshore? So it is an organized crime, and you have people at high level will really to be able to address that. So, Mr. Adedura, your concern is very genuine, and we hope that we will get to an end of it one day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a second question from Wale Alabi. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Wale Alabi, please.
Okay.
Wale Alabi, unmute yourself.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation.
All
Can
right,
you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Very
Go
well.
ahead.
Oh, okay. You know, my question centers around the petroleum industry. So in your presentation, you made mention of activities of the IOC. So in the recent time, I realized that most of the IOC are selling their assets and they are leaving Nigeria. I'm not sure whether they are selling part or a whole. So they are selling, they are leaving. So what is going to be the impact in the mid and long term on Nigerian economy, on the petroleum sector? Then I want to tie down to the indigenous companies. For me, I only noticed that Seplat is the only one on ground that is buying up some of these assets. So can only Seplat do that? Do we have other indigenous companies? How can government encourage indigenous company, you know, to fill that gap? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for this very robust questions. And I can tell you they are topics, you know, on their own. Now, the first one is IOCs are selling their assets and they are leaving Nigeria. What is the impact? The impact is very huge. And the impact is negative. I must be very blunt and very clear. As in Nigeria now, it's very painful. Why do I say this? We don't have the huge US dollars to invest in that industry because every single year we require about 20 billion US dollars to invest in the oil and gas industry. Where do we find such money? There's nowhere we can find such money. So it's very disheartening to me that we are just going to waste those 36 billion crude in Nigeria. There is no two ways about it. That's number one. Number two, Seplat is buying. I must commend Seplat, to be very honest, because if you don't have a lion heart, and I pay homage to the chairman of the committee, because people believe she has a very lion heart in challenging a lot of status quo. Seplat has a huge lion heart to be buying those assets, because even as Nigerians, it's difficult to manage, those assets. Now, the challenge with Seplat is that as much as they are doing, they love Nigeria, that's what I can see from them, but then they have to go and take loan from outside to come and be running the business here. So they will be running on huge costs, huge external costs and internal costs. Some of us used to say, oh, Nigerian companies, they don't pay tax as huge as, the IOCs. How can they pay huge tax? Are they borrowing at the same rate? These MNEs, they may borrow at even 0.5%. They may use intercompany to just say it's just 0.1%, or 1%. Which Nigerian company will go abroad and borrow at that rate? It's not possible. So the interest is already eroded. Mr. Wale, is already eroded. So I think Seplat must be credited at any time by all of us that, look, here is a very patriotic thinking of saying Nigerians should, not allow these things to go down the train. Then you talk about how to encourage, the people. It's quite challenging in terms of getting the government to understand the whole of these things. And unfortunately, that is where we are right now. If you ask me what the government can do to encourage, there are two things the government can do. The first one is to grant an incentive, to the industries and say, okay, you, the Nigerian entities or joint venture of both Nigerian and non-Nigerian entities, we now want to give you some incentives. So, like they have attempted it before, which is pioneer status, they gave 5 years. Unfortunately, they came back to cancel the 5 years, or say 3 years. Attempts, not, they haven't really been able to cancel it. And that is what I mean by, pushing people to regulatory challenges. The government gave 5 years. People have claimed those 5 years now with the hope of using the money to borrow more money and then increase their production, which they did. Then the government came back to cancel it and said, no. And then some people went to court and then they won. So it is only when hands are tied as we speak now. Assuming the court has said that, okay, you are not entitled to it, what kind of regulatory environment are we creating? Are we sleeping when we are giving them those, opportunities to say, okay, we are giving you this incentive, go and use it to borrow more money and come and do drillings. And they've done that. And now we are canceling it retroactively. So I am bringing this, on the table so that we, especially those of us who are working in government, may know the implication of certain decisions we take on us, not on them. Because the investors will go away. Either they go to Ghana, they go to Gambia, they go to other countries where things are certain. Not after 5 years, you want to come and cancel an incentive you've given me to come to your industry. So a way to encourage them is by way of incentive. But our incentive in Nigeria has been so unpredictable and unreliable. Reliability is very important, for us. And the second one is to give the industry what I would call maybe some cash amnesty or cash backing to say, okay, Nigerians, for instance, Seplat, we now know you are doing. So we want to give you $1 billion bank guarantee. So banks, please give $1 billion to government. Will not do that because the government doesn't have the financial capability or strength to do that. So that's why it's a bit difficult. I said the question you have raised, they are questions on their own, and it always interests me as Nigerian to discuss this. That what's the way forward? The best way forward are the IOCs to bring US dollars into Nigeria, but that is only if investment environment is friendly with. So thank you very much, Wale, for that question. And I think I'm on the deadline of 5:30 that chairman, gave for this exercise. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alhaji Alatoye. I want to say that we're indeed very, very opportune to have in our midst. I want to present your plaque. You can see.
Thank you very much.
It will be delivered to your office. And once we get that, on behalf of the district, we are presenting this. And I will just use that to hand over to my chairman, who will do the needful in acknowledging your taking our time to be with us. My chairman, sir.
Thank you. The IPC.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate.
Okay.
Please
IPC,
call
sir.
IPC.
Is IPC on?
Yeah, it should be on.
Elder Omidiji, are you on, sir?
It will be on.
I've not seen him.
I've seen him today.
Okay. I've not seen him, so that's why. Okay.
Okay.
So,
okay, no problem. On his behalf, sir, this is to us a great feat, and we will continue to cherish this rare opportunity. When it comes to this, you are and others, you are not a small mind, and those of us that are very close to you understand the efficacy of coming closer. When Madam Titi was introducing you the other time, she has not been able to tell the whole house that your firm has trained so many, and a number of professionals are partnering in your firm. I think she should tell us more about that. That she's also a shadow partner. Titi, please tell us so that people can know the efficacy of this. Let me stop here.
I think you just want to let the cat out of the bag. I want to say that Alhaji Aziz has been a mentor, a leader. We've worked together in PwC, and he's making me to be a lawyer by force, by making sure that I read all the legal briefs before we go to court. And I think that's a plus to my association with him. And for those young ones coming behind, and you want to be a dogged tax consultant and lawyer, you have the right mentor in front of you. Just hook onto him, and then you will get the best mentorship that you want. Thank you. Thank you. And I know Prof. too is a shadow baby lawyer for him.
I'm following his footsteps. Okay, so the award stand presented.
Thanks, Doctor, and thanks, Prof.
Okay,
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I'm seeing a name here, Adedayo. I don't know. Adedayo. Which Adedayo is this? I want to be sure it's someone that...
It looks like CITM president.
Please, if it's Ms. Adedayo, please, can you just unmute and talk to us? Adedayo. The device is Adedayo. Can we know the person behind that name? Please, whoever is the host, you allow him to unmute himself. Let's be sure. I'm no longer a host, but host, please, can you look for that name, capital letter Adedayo, and let's know who is behind that name, if the name has not disappeared again. Okay.
The person is out.
Okay, so I guess he's a CITM president, and if he's the one, we give him due recognition. I know wherever Aziz Alatoye is, he also like to be there invariably. Okay, thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Madam Titi, are you done with this technical session completely?
Yes, we've taken the questions, and we've acknowledged our paper presenter. We know he would oblige us when we call him again. And for all our members, we are having our next presentation in August, during our physical meeting, and we have another erudite professor and a professor of professors that will be coming. Let me not let the cat out of the bag. You get more about it. Thank you.
Yes, and I'd like to follow up that the secretary will be getting back to all our members that next month meeting could be on August 21 for some reason that will be explained later. The information just came in now, and we'll have to let you prepare. If there's going to be any further changes, we'll let you know. It's going to be a physical one, and we continue to make you to be abreast of what we're doing. I think on our normal agenda, we are done. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long time that we received from you donation during the meeting. If I can get 200,000 for today, I wouldn't mind.
We can release you, sir, if you want to.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Have
sir.
a very nice
Bye,
day.
sir.
All
Thank
right.
you.